Welcome to the Fearless Floyd Show. We'll begin in 2 minutes. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Fearless Floyd Show. As always, I am your host, Fearless Floyd, and I am back with Noel Benoist, or Benoist, as it looks. If you aren't familiar with who Noel is, wow, we've been uncovering some astonishing revelations in the last several days. Finally, I think we have his memory and everything on track. So now these hopefully we won't veer too far off the topic on all these upcoming videos. And listen, as I go back and listen to some of the prior videos that I've done with Noel, I'm catching these tidbits like Monday night. will be the debut for Mark of the Beast. I don't even think anybody even caught it because the video was about Martin Luther King assassination. But in that little segment, he talked about the Mark of the Beast. And we're going to talk about that on this show. So that's part of the little Spytech and gadgets that they have and that they've had for quite a while. Now, I want to preface this conversation with Noel today about some of the technology that you're going to hear about, because what he's talking about is his experience, and hopefully he'll date everything that he's talking about. So if he's talking about ABC technology, you know, it was developed in the 40s. We got it in the 60s, and, you know, now it was released in the public in the 80s, whatever that timeline looks like. So you'll have a comprehension of when these military industrial complex, pharmaceutical industrial complex, agricultural industrial complex, you know, it just goes on and on and on, how they have these technologies, and they've had them for quite a while, and that they eventually get released out here into the public. That generally is, I say, on a 50 to 20 year window. So when we see it out here in the public, you know, oh, look, hey, it's a stealth fighter. Well, they've been using that technology for at least 20 years, if not 50. It could be possibly longer. Noel's baseline is at 50 years. Mine is at 50 to 20. So I wanted to preface that for you guys right up front, exactly what we're talking about with technology. So when they came into effect, usage, Noel's knowledge and usage, and or as well as today's technologies. So some of these things we're going to talk about, you know, it's today, it's real. Just watched a video on YouTube about Anonymous, and they're parroting everything that I'm saying. Exactly. Actually, they played some videos that, you know, I was playing last month, if not the month before that, regarding AI and where it's going. I'll be speaking the next day after Noel. If you're in the DFW area next weekend, come see Noel, myself, if you have a chance. I'll be talking about AI, artificial intelligence, your digital DNA, digital twins, and what the future holds, and, you know, who these major players are in that category. So it'll be a very knowledgeable talk. I'll be saying a lot of things that I, you know, obviously can't say on YouTube. So if you want to hear it come out, obviously we will have the books. You know, it's the proof copy. I'm actually getting all the books for the event today. So those will be available for autograph. And of course, I'll have the old trusty and the Floron Trust book, as well as the old trusty specialty trusts. So all these books will be available at the event. Of course, it'll be a on-site discount, but yeah, we will be doing autographs, meet and greets, book signings. If you want to do some photographs, I'm sure we'll definitely do those as well. I don't have a drop step, so you know, whatever we use, you know, I might, you know, take this with me. We'll just use a black scrim behind me. So you never know. But on with the show. Today we're going to talk about Spytech and gadgets, what that looks like from a former NSA man in black military intelligence experience all over the world. So without further ado, the infamous, notorious bad boy, choir boy, actor, author. Well, I'll tell you what, I always do that, but let me go over here to the banner and we'll just follow, like we used to say, the bouncing ball, but we're going to follow the banner. Noel Benoist, Army brat, choir boy, Cub Scout, Boy Scout, U.S. Army Major, retired NSA agent, man in black, and whistleblower. and co-author of the 200-year plan with the late Ted Gunderson, FBI special agent in charge, also a whistleblower and author. Noel is part of Majestic 12, also known as MJ12, which is a purported secret organization that appears in UFO conspiracy theories. According to these theories, MJ12 was a code name for a committee formed in 1947 by an executive order comprising scientists, military leaders, and governmental officials. The committee allegedly handled the recovery of an extraterrestrial aircraft and subsequent cover-ups. Noel Benoist claims to be the 13th seat on Majestic 12 to replace one of the 12 if they become incapacitated, and that was during his stint as a man in black with the NSA. He is the son of the youngest promoted full bird colonel, who was the sole custodian of the Normandy Day invasion plans. Noel's very proud of his father, as he should be. Noel has multiple appearances and credited and uncredited in major motion pictures, such as Sharon Stone's Quick and the Dead, and founded a ministry, Glory to God United Ministries Worldwide. There you go. There's the introduction for Noel Benoist. And here is the information right here down below for the event coming up next weekend. So if you get a chance to attend, come out here and, you can ask some questions that some things we can't talk about here on, social media in the public. But we're going to do what we got to do when we got to do it. So, Noel, how you doing, brother?
I'm always doing good. I'm too stubborn to quit.
There you go.
There you go.
That's it.
But by the way, on your intro there, I also founded Truckers Fight for Justice in the big trucking fight with the railroad, and founded Truckers Fight for Justice, and I also founded the National American Indian Veterans. That started with me and my cousin Marvin Young Dog on my couch. So I've been an instigator for a long time.
Right. And I just actually uploaded those. That was part of that. Remember I told you I went through one of your old videos and
oh yeah. Okay.
That was part of it. Absolutely. Cool. Well, that's crazy. Yep. Somebody's texting me. All right. Spytech and gadgets. So tell us what that's all about. I know obviously you and myself, we came up in that era where who's the
James Bond?
Well, there's Flash Gordon.
The Flash, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And then the Rocket. Who is Captain America? And then the Rocket Man.
Dick Tracy and all these icons.
Charlie Chan.
Yeah, used all this kind of like spy gear and all these techniques and all that stuff. So I know you obviously saw that as a child, being a military brat, going, base to base, eventually coming into military intelligence via the Army. So describe all that for everybody and, how you kind of got into that and then start talking about your spy tech and gadgets.
Yeah, well, I started getting interested in a lot of this. My dad would tell me some of his stories, and he told me basically what really happened because he knew the whole thing as far as what happened with Roosevelt. And when Roosevelt said, we will not enter the war, and Roosevelt had one of the first programs that he basically called Operation Magic, and used the way magicians use magic to distract people in one area and to actually more or less open the door subconsciously and everything for Japan. Because by saying, well, we're not going to enter the war, and then he invited Japan to peace talks. So basically Japan figured, hey, they think we're going to be peaceful. So what a great time to basically plan a surprise attack. But Roosevelt had also said that the people will not enter the war unless they are angered enough to do so. And he openly basically ordered all of the fleets to an area, or at least the Japanese thought all of the fleets were going to be in Pearl Harbor. But then when the fleets were all headed for Pearl Harbor, he secretly got them a message, some of them a message. So one of our major fleets split off and was elsewhere. And of course, two things prevented Japan from just to keep coming and land on the California shores. And when somebody asked the commander one time why they didn't just keep coming to Pearl Harbor and then land on the California shores, the Japanese leader said there were basically two reasons. One of which was every American has a gun, a weapon, and they figured they would have too many losses if they actually invaded the land, because Americans were ready to shoot and they would pick up arms to defend themselves. But the other one was another major one, was the fact that I think it was the Atlantic Fleet had split off and they didn't know where the Atlantic Fleet was. So they didn't know if the Atlantic Fleet was coming around behind them to trap them in between or whatever. So that's why they basically stopped at Pearl Harbor and then turned around and went back. But they knew things were coming because my dad let me know when I was young. There wasn't the Japanese sub that they basically bombed or blasted out of the water just shortly before Pearl Harbor was one of 7, because they blew a Japanese sub out of the water in the San Francisco area and down in the LA area. And then my dad was actually, at that time, when it started, a major. And so they had him on the coastal watch and had his command on the coastal watch there. Monterey, basically Monterey, San Francisco, going down toward LA. And they were waiting for the Japanese to actually keep coming. So there was basically plenty of notice. And of course, when they caught this big squadron on radar, and the one radar commander said, "Oh, that's the California fleet coming home, or squadron." And the thing is, all of the guys there should have recognized that, because the California squadron coming to Hawaii would be coming out of the east, and the squadron was coming out of the west and southwest. So we talked about that, and that kind of cued me in some of the deceptions. And I think some of that actually started because I talked to my dad about like the Kennedy assassination and how come they didn't cover what happened to the brass bullet that the doctor picked up, or brass fragments of a bullet that they couldn't explain. And it was never covered. And I think, if I remember rightly, I'd asked my dad about that. And he said, "Well, son," he said, "government does have a lot of deception going on." And so then he got into some of the other. And he said basically that for quite some time, politicians maneuver people into the direction that they want to go, so that when they go there, they're not seen as outlandish or way out, or no big objections from the public and all that kind of stuff. And Dad talked about some of the things that they had when he was in. And so that kind of got me going, that with the Kennedy thing. And then my conversations with Dad, I started digging into more and more and more. And I also found out then, basically, once I was in, and I'd seen, matter of fact, actually back when they first, in 47 on, at first, Highway Patrol would spot a UFO and they would talk about it. And there was film Golden Gate Bridge, some UFOs flying under it. And that was one of the training centers and one of the military centers there right by the Golden Gate. And then in Red Bluff, they actually had a highway patrol car chase a UFO, and they came out to our school. I was at Central Valley High School at the time, so that would have been about 62 or so, about 61, 62. And we all went in and they showed us the film footage chasing this UFO. And they told us, if you see anything, be sure to give us a call. And then all of a sudden, basically Men in Black and basically the deep state decided, oh, they had to control all of that. And so that's when they start saying, oh, no, there's no UFOs and everything. And that was one of the things that I actually talked to deep state about, how at first there were plenty of sightings and people talked about sightings and things hit the airway, film footage and everything that was good film footage. You could see the underside of the craft real easy and everything. And I said, so you've got all of that, people know it, and now all of a sudden it's not there. So I told him, I said, you just alienated the older generation because they've seen it, they know it's there. And now you're trying to get the younger generation to believe it doesn't exist. So now you're dividing families. The young kid says, Dad, that's all a bunch of bunk, delusional or whatever. And so we had to talk about how that divides America. And I said, then you've also got the people who have seen that, who are greatly respected by family and friends, who then are positive that it's a true report. So I said, you divided America that way, and you have basically taken the reputation of America and of our American government and put it in the trash heap because of the way they were doing what they were doing. And I told him, I said, your best deal is just to say, hey, the stuff is out there. We've got these ancient drawings of the grays, and we've got these ancient drawings of like UFOs and that. And none of that, even in the Bible. I mean, if the fastest mode of transportation that you have is a chariot, horse-drawn chariot, and a person sees a UFO, it looks like a flying ball of fire or whatever, or a flying saucer of fire, then you might call it a fiery chariot. And it might even have like a tailwind coming off of it, especially if they're in trouble. I saw one go down one time and it had a fiery tail when it was headed down. And the Bible has the thing where the prophet was caught up in the tailwind of a fiery chariot. And then you've got Daniel, and he saw this craft basically with the wheels spinning and lights flashing. And his description is a perfect description of the old saucer UFO. So, and I just told him, I said, I thought they were handling it in a ludicrous way that was really damaging to everything we really wanted to do. And I found out that basically a lot of our spy gadgets came out of reverse engineering. Plus, there was one alien that survived. One was pretty cut up and torn up. The first one that they autopsied was pretty torn up, and I think he had like leg damage or something like that, and part of the leg missing or something. But they started doing him, when they cut him open, the smell just filled the whole place. And I think I'd met one of the nurses at one time who was actually there, and she said the smell was ungodly, and they evacuated everybody out of the hallways and everything. And then the doctors looked at each other and said, well, we've been exposed so far, and figured they'd better go ahead and, after they finished the autopsy, basically get into the decontamination room and the shower and all that and try to clean off. And so then, actually, when they went in without the zoot suits on, it was a violation of protocol and all that anyway. So the first autopsy film actually went off to the side, and I think they told the major to go ahead and take it and destroy it. But the major, after they told him that he was going to have to tell everybody it was a weather balloon, he saved it. And he sent it, I think, to friends or family. So then later, there was a film that basically surfaced, which was Alien Autopsy. And that was the first autopsy on the first creature that already had basically pretty heavy damage. And then they did another autopsy on one that was not damaged that way, that they could get more information from. And then when they went out there, there was one that was in a daze that was walking around. And so when they brought that one in and put him in a room, then they decided to give him some technology to like play with or fool with a little bit. And he started putting something together. So they saw what he was putting together, and he was able to then communicate with them. And he needed to get back to his home planet because Earth atmosphere wasn't all that good for them. They could be down here for a while, but it wasn't that good for them. And so then they basically helped him and get a message off to his home planet, etc., and get a ship to come rescue him. And so then the group that was involved in that decided that we were a pretty good group for the human race to try and work with us and learn more about humans and maybe try to guide us a little bit. And so a lot of our technology, I mean, people notice we went from the biplane to supersonic jets and bombers and stuff that they can't pick up on radar really in pretty fast order. And our computers and everything just, I mean, pretty fast order. And so, but and we got a lot of our spy gadgets out of that. We had one spy gadget that you could actually basically hold in your hand real easy, kind of like a little pin. And you could sit there and hit somebody with it, and it would give them a flash that would pretty much blind them. I mean, it would be such a bright flash that it wasn't just like a narrow laser. It was almost like a spread out laser that would hit both eyes, and it was brighter than the brightest flash bulb you ever saw. And some people, it would hit them hard enough you could actually put them out.
What
It'd
was
be
the
like
purpose of it?
if somebody was going to come after you, if you were in danger and you couldn't fire a weapon, because then if you fired a weapon, the sound would bring more trouble.
Right.
So you could hit them with that flash, and if it didn't totally knock them out, you could knock them out pretty easy, and then you could get out of the danger zone before because it would hurt so bad and hit them. It was, matter of fact, my eyes are kind of sensitive, and if somebody hits me with a really bright flash, well, I can
Mm-hmm.
feel that all the way back in my brain, and that thing would take a perfectly healthy person, and it could hit them hard enough that basically it would knock them out. It just boom out, you know. And
Wow.
so yeah, so that was one. If you needed to get out and not be known that you were there until you were basically out of harm's way. And then we had one that basically like a knockout gas, that you could sit there and they had various things they could put that in. Like I could show you an object, I could have this like a little piece of art or a carving or something like that. Get my hand over here. Where's the hand? There we go. So I could sit there and show you like an object that was carved or something like that, and then I could have my finger under it, and with my little finger I could touch that button, and boom, gas that hit you in the face, and you'd be out. Like a knockout gas. And then I had my little 22 long rifle pin, looked just exact.
I don't know if I lost him or not. Looks like I lost Noel. All right, and we are back after that temporary disconnection on Noel's end. So I have him backstage, and here we are. He's
There
back.
we go. Hey, it's good to be back.
Right? There we go.
Yeah. So, okay. So I guess when I was talking, when got cut off right about the location thing, maybe the boys didn't like us talking about that location stuff. But
Never.
back then, it was just basically like a direction finder. So you'd know that they were maybe 3 or 4 miles to your southwest or something like that. But then back then, you had to know the layout of the city because you would have to know if 3 or 4 miles southwest and would be then like say Second Avenue and Fillmore, you know. So you'd have to know pretty much about where it was. But whereas today, the locator, you can plot them right on a map. I mean, you can get the address 1624 Pine Street. You know, that's where they
Right.
are. Yeah. So that's all advanced. But all of that stuff actually started coming through after Roswell, when the one creature that was alive, basically, they finally got a way to communicate, got him a way to communicate with his home planet and pick him up. And so they figured that our group was a pretty good group to deal with for Earth because they weren't too sure about any of the stuff with, because of our wars, they weren't too sure, you know, if they should get together with us or were we going to be a danger to their universe, because the atom bomb, when they used it, the waves from the atom bomb actually hit their galaxy and their planet. They could feel it. It registered on their equipment. So they knew, you know, something super big just happened on this planet they'd been visiting, where it used to be horses and chariots. What have they got now? You know? So that's why they're checking things out. But so then they helped that guy, and he helped him with a little bit of the reverse engineering, what some of the stuff was about. And from time, and they had a way, it was like they could actually, they had the ability to kind of like implant knowledge and ideas into your brain. They could do like telepathy. So they could give mental transmissions, which they did from time to time, that would be, you know, if they maybe give a scientist a mental transmission and a picture and actually guide the scientist in some of the stuff that they wanted to do. But most of the stuff they did was all pretty much peaceful and exploration wise. And they were really the Greys were not too happy with our atomic bomb research and everything. And the neutron bomb had them really worried. Because, and one of the things that they actually counseled our people on was that if they develop deeper into this bomb stuff, then they're getting to the like the antimatter.
Mhm.
An antimatter bomb
Excuse
could
me.
turn Earth and our solar system into a black hole. Because like your antimatter stuff is kind of like an energy beast that eats energy, you know, feeds on matter, keeps the antimatter alive, kind of a deal. So they tried to caution us to get away from that kind of stuff, but helped us in some of the other areas, including some of our areas for growing and everything. You know, they've actually, I mean, there's a couple of farmers and stuff that got picked up, and they gave them tips on growing, and all of a sudden these farmers are, you know, it's like you look at the pumpkins of 2020 and look at some of the pumpkins that they're growing now. You know, it's a 10-ton pumpkin. You know, yeah,
Like
and
something we see on The Simpsons, right?
yeah, yeah,
Next to
you
the
know,
nuclear factory.
yep. And some of that is because basically, and actually, I picked up a when I'm over there, I'll see you. I've got some stuff I'll show you on a time traveler who actually showed up here, and there was enough confirmation. The guy just suddenly shows up in a store, materializes, boom. And so they questioned him, did some blood samples and everything. And the time he was from actually fits like the end of the 1,000-year reign of Christ, because where we are now, and he was from 3,000 some odd. And it was like, you know, around like I think I'd have to look at the stuff on again, somewhere between 3,046 and 56 or something. And basically the aliens helping us with food growth and everything. In that time, they were living in homes in the air. The earth is basically farmed, etc., and they're living in homes and pods and stuff in the air. It's almost like the Jetsons and stuff. And that's where some of those ideas came from, because some other planets, that's pretty much the way they live, you know? So, yeah, so that's some of this hovercraft stuff and everything. And then, and of course, if you had a home that was hovering, an earthquake would never bother it, you know? So they had some of that stuff that they went through and kind of helped us with. And but then basically that's when our deep state wanted to control everything. And that's one of the reasons they had the naval oil cap reserved for time of war in San Diego on the field that Trump is now opening up, that's got over a 3,000-year supply of oil, you know. And that's even if we had 3 more world wars. So there's plenty. And so you know, and the thing that I'm looking at on that, and of course we do need some alternate energy, but we need to use what we've got and use it wisely as we've got it. And the thing is, all of the resources should have been enriching the people who live on these lands, because it's America, it's an American soil, it's like a national product. And that's what Palin did in Alaska. She said, hey, this is Alaska, that's Alaska oil. And she made the oil companies pay the Alaska citizens, and Alaskan citizens get royalties off of the Alaska oil.
Yep.
So, yeah.
The Coshada Indians also get a royalty too.
Yeah, exactly.
Some tribes do, some don't. It's weird that way. But
yeah.
All right. So you kind of got off your Spytech and gadgets.
Yeah, that's where a lot of those techie gadgets came from. And back then it was mainly the gas and the like the flash, you know, my 22 long rifle, because we're talking like 60s, late 60s. Okay. And they start getting into the more advanced stuff in the 70s, you know. Okay. So, yeah. And the matter of fact, about the late 60s, I think, because they came up with the deal where if you had somebody with you, like the ejection car seat, where you could blow the top off the car and eject the person in it. And of course, the first ejection seats were put in the jets, you know, and the parachute stuff. So, and once they basically developed that, which was some of the reverse engineering, because Roswell, it was actually a pod that separated from the main ship. And it was the pod that is kind of like that used to be the top of the saucer, because you'd have the main saucer like this, and then you'd have this pod on that and a pod on top of that. And that pod on top of the main flat part was almost like a second saucer escape ship. And they tried to blow that pod, and I guess they had problems blowing the pod. And by the time they blew the pod, they were coming up against the cliff that the second pod was stuck in when they got up there, because you had all the debris coming up to it, and then the report showed that there was a pod that was stuck in the cliff, where it hit the cliff with impact and actually embedded into the cliff.
Wow, that's some hard material.
Yeah, and yet it was very light material, you know. And what was a trip is that, like, that foil stuff that the major showed, that was in the first article that was in the newspaper. And yet somehow when that foil stuff was on the ship, like on the frame of the ship and everything, and I think what it was is basically that foil would emit like an energy field. So it wasn't really the foil that was so hard and would hold up, but it was the energy field. And as a matter of fact, the then they used to have that racer that they would take out to White Sands, and they had the jet racer, and they would they had the land speed record, and it was a jet that they had turned into like a race car. Do you ever
Okay.
see that?
Yeah.
Okay. That
Mhm.
one time couldn't stop, and it went all the way through the end and into the lake, and it went through 2 or 3 telephone poles. The telephone poles shattered. It was going fast enough that it had like a force field in front of it, and the telephone poles shattered before the nose of the car hit. And they were amazed because 2 or 3 poles shattered, and they go pull it out of the water, and the nose was in perfect shape.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and the car driver said, man, he said he was watching these poles come at him, and then he'd watch them just shatter and go around him as he went through.
That's crazy.
Isn't it?
Yeah, that's crazy. So what was the first spy tech gadget that they gave you or you encountered?
Well, first one I had was like a little like a pen recording,
Hmm.
where you could record
Okay.
and use the pen for for getting the notes in and stuff, getting the recording done.
Okay.
Yeah, and I got along good on that. So then they said, okay, now and nobody noticed it because they were wondering, some people might handle that and handle it at the wrong time, and then somebody wants to see it. And I was good about doing, having that covertly where people wouldn't notice. And so then they said, okay, you handle that and you do good. It's not noticeable, etc. So here's one that can save your life. And they opened the pin up and put a 22 hollow point long rifle shell in it. And they fired it and said, this will fire more than one round, but one round at a time. And so I said, okay, but a 22 long rifle hollow point gonna do some damage,
Oh yeah, it'll kill a deer.
especially close range.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Put it in the right place, it's gonna kill. No problem.
Yep. Yeah, and then the next one they gave me was that, like, the little gas gadget, where you could pull it out like a trinket in your pocket, and you had to be sure you didn't touch it a certain way or whatever. You didn't want to trigger the gas in your pocket.
Right.
Yeah. So had to learn to kind of like walk around and not do some things that you might otherwise do because you might hit the gadget at the wrong time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be catastrophic.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. So anything else that unique as far as
Well,
spy tech and gadgets?
we actually had long range camera stuff that we could zoom in on. And I mean, and that was, and we had long range camera stuff in the 60s.
Right.
Man. Yeah. And we got some of that from the aliens too. But like as a matter of fact, probably they started getting heavy in the camera stuff around 50 to 54. And by the time the first satellite went up, we had camera gear that we could put in a satellite, and out from outer space, if you were crossing the road, we could basically count the hairs on your forehead. We could blow it up that big. And for stuff like that in operations, we had a wall that was about 12 to 14 feet high and about 36 feet long. And we could blow up a picture on that wall and fill that whole wall with one picture as big as we wanted, and it would still be in focus.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Yep.
crazy.
Isn't it?
Yeah, I can't even imagine what they have suppressed.
Oh, yeah. And even back then, we had the technology, and I told them we needed to use it, where we could do camera conferences. And that's why I was trying to get them to all basically come together and work as a team and have the director of every agency on it, where they would have their camera to watch and to be viewed in, like we're doing here, and then have Interpol have their camera and have Mossad have their camera and everything. So we could actually do world intel conferences and put that all on the computer, and we could have caught more serial killers, all kinds of stuff that could be done. And after some of the stuff happened, now they've got like their conference wall with about 25 to 30 cameras on it and 25 to 30 TVs. So each camera is like for each individual or whatever outfit, you know, so they can do their conference stuff. And they could even have, like, say, MJ-12 could be there, and they could have a camera on each one of the 12. So each one could individually be speaking or speak to them, and they wouldn't have to, like, change the camera or fire up a different camera, you know.
All right, let me ask you this, because I just saw this. Apparently, I believe he's in Atlanta, Georgia. This kid created a machine that will take plastic and turn it into gasoline. And he made a video, dead man switch video, that if he goes missing, for somebody to play this video, and that video got played. As you're experiencing a Man in Black, were you ever, or did you know of Men in Black going to lean on, suppress, take people,
lean
with
on,
all
suppress, threaten, kill? Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah. Matter of fact, and see, plastic is a petroleum byproduct.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So reverse the process a little bit, a couple of additives, and it's more gas instead of plastic. Yeah. Yeah. So, yep. And another guy actually invented a carburetor that would get over 120 miles to the gallon. So we got 3,000 years of use in that one oil field. Now, take the 18 to 20 to 24 mile per gallon car, and take that car up to 120 to 180 miles per gallon. Now that oil field is a 12, 14, 18,000 year oil field.
Right.
See? And he invented a carburetor that would do that for gas and for diesel. And guess where he got the idea? World War II. World War II, when the bombers went over to bomb, they flew low to the ocean to try and not be seen.
Right, under the radar.
Yep. And they thought they were going to run out of fuel. They landed back on the ships or back at their airport stuff, and they had fuel left over. And so they start calculating, how can we have fuel left over? Well, the vapors off of the water broke up the fuel molecules so that they had a burn that was 4 to 10 times more efficient. And what this guy did, he took and airplanes have a similar setup on them. And so he took that and had a vapor unit that would be sucked in to mix with the fuel. And he was getting 120 miles to the gallon with like gas and diesel. Texaco and Texaco and Shell made him an offer he couldn't refuse. Here's $6 million for your invention. Or if you don't want the $6 million for your invention, we're giving you these 6 grave sites for you and your family to be buried in. Message is pretty clear. And there were men in black assigned to the oil companies to work with them. The first oil enforcers and stuff for oil companies were basically men in black. Keeping the oil company straight, and railroad same way. Railroad had government agents. The railroad police were the first police force empowered and the most powerful ever empowered. Did you know that the railroad police had authority to come into your home to search and seize with absolutely no warrant whatsoever?
That's crazy.
Yeah. So it goes that far back. Absolute power goes that far back.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it goes. This isn't anything new. Nothing new. Nothing new.
No.
So, what do you see currently that is based upon, past technologies or spyware or an intelligence that's
Currently,
coming?
yeah. Currently, as I've been waiting for it too, and currently is the AI. And I wasn't too sure if it was going to be the bad guy might be China and the good guy might be Elon Musk. But I think basically right now, Elon Musk AI and China AI is kind of like trying to differ between identical twins.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, because we had similar to AI, even in Intel. And the thing is, they don't release something to the public until our Intel people figure that they are 50 to 100 years ahead.
Right.
And another thing we could do, even back then, we could do holograms in the late 60s and going into the 70s. And by say 74, 75, going into the 80s, we could put a regiment of tanks on a ridge and they would look solid and real, and they would sound solid and real until a person got up to them and walked through the hologram.
That's crazy.
Yeah. See, so they could basically do that and then find out if it would draw enemy fire, let the enemy attack what's a hologram, and then come in behind them, and oops, the real ones are back here.
Wow.
And then, those were gadgets you could put in your pocket.
Right. So are you going to bring some of this material that obviously we can't show here to the event in Dallas?
I'm going to bring it to Dallas, and one of them is a bona fide article on the visitor from the future and the information that it has.
Wow. That'll be interesting.
Yep.
That'll be interesting.
And I got some more stuff in my booklet that I've got with me. This booklet that I've got is about, I mean, let's see if I can go. It's about this thick. And I actually accumulated about, I think it was 6 or 7 of those from basically, say, junior high all the way through my Men in Black days, etc.
Okay.
But 2 or 3 of them got left in Germany. And I was going to do when I was basically founding Truckers Fight for Justice, I was going to do a television conference deal, a video or conference or like a press conference. And I was going to do it at Phoenix First Assembly. The night before the conference, my car got broke into and my home got broke into. No valuables were taken. Briefcases and files were stolen. And then nobody showed up at the conference, and I called Fox 10 and all that stuff, say, hey, nobody showed up. Oh, we got a call yesterday that the conference was canceled.
Wow.
So they called, and one Fox guy, Rod Haber, producer for Channel 10 at the time, and we would get into the middle of where all the machinery was, because that machinery would basically interrupt, because they also have a rifle mic. They got a rifle mic. I forgot about that till just now. The
All
rifle
right.
mic could basically zoom in on you from outer space and get every word clear as a bell. But the machinery at the TV station and everything, all that machinery will interfere with it. So we would get in the middle of all of that machinery to talk about stuff. And more than once, I was the guy behind the screen with a disguised voice, the deep throat or whatever, for some of those deals like that.
Right.
Yep. And like with Ted and me, we got together a few times. See, Ted and I mean, it was kind of, when we got together, we were just so much together. We partnered. It was like we partnered immediately. And I got Ted into it, and I just said, okay, do it the right way. You're my partner, and we both believed in the same things. We wanted to get everything cleaned up and done right. So basically, it's like I'd say we partnered right after the DC riots. I think our first meeting after the DC riots, we got together and we understood, man, from here on, we're partners and we're on this. We'll share everything we got. And he knew that I couldn't just give him a flow. I had to have the opening and everything and be secure. And Ted was the same way, And so that was a lifelong partnership and investigation. And as soon as I called him and everything, he knew it was time. We got to get together and do a joint report. I said, that's why I'm calling you. Your bedroom's up front. Your walk-in closet's up front. Your master bathroom's up front.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, kick ass. All right, man.
Yeah.
Well, that wraps it up for Spytech and gadgets. And we're going to do some more videos. We have more topics to discuss. And I don't know which one we're going to get to next, because I have a list written down. So we'll get all that together. So, all right. Noel will be live Saturday, August 9th in Plano, Texas at the Sky Pony Gallery at the mall at Willow Bend. He will begin speaking at 3 p.m. till probably past 5. And then from 5 to 7, we will have the meet and greet, book signing, photographs, whatever you want. I'll be there as well. And then I will follow up Sunday, August 10th. I'll begin speaking at 1 p.m. and hopefully around 3. And then from 3 to 5, the mall closes at 5, but we can stay beyond. I'll be doing book signings as well as photographs. And Noel will be there as well to, y'all can engage with him out in the audience if y'all want. Pull him aside. There's tons of space in the Sky Pony Gallery. It is a beautiful location. I chose it for a reason, because there is so much space that you can literally go on the other side of this gallery and do a complete presentation at the same time, and neither one will hear each other. That's how large this gallery is. So it's very adequate. Plus, there's a fully stocked bar. I imagine Doug Winters, the owner, will be back there slinging drinks. So I look forward to that, and seeing Kiki as well. Doug and Kiki are the artists and owners of the Sky Pony Gallery. So if you're up in the DFW area next weekend, stop on by. It's a free event. Doesn't cost you a dime. And come, see some kick-ass art. Come meet some really cool people and interact, and hopefully you get educated. All right. Anything else you want to add before we close?
Well, I'd say, when they do come, I hope that they basically learn a lot and kind of like stay cool. When I got out, I self-medicated too much, about a half a gallon a day. And that's no good. So make sure that have fun, but either be able to drive or call a taxi.
Right. There you go. Sage advice. All right. Thank you, Noel. All right, there you have it. Noel Benoist, Cub Scout, Boy Scout, author, man of many hats, many titles. Just so awesome to have him on here and to be able to, assist writing his book, his autobiography. So, Pedagogy of Noel. That's the second book that you see over here, right here, this one right here. And that's what part of this is. These shows that we do eventually become partials, parts of a chapter or chapters in of themselves. So that's what we're doing with this. So thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. I'll be doing videos of Noel all the way up until we do the live on Saturday and Sunday of next week. So I look forward to that. Thank you everybody for being here. I'll catch you in the next video. Have a good weekend. Thank you for hanging around after the show. I want to present to you Tailor-Made Trust, featuring Ann LaFleur's Trust Series, available at tailormadetrust.com, as well as thefearlessfloydshow.com store. Here are a handful of the available trusts that can be built, custom tailored to your needs and desires. 25 different trusts, plus the DNA trust addendum. And as always, Ann LaFleur's classic trusts and ancillary classes, and also Ann's books on trust and specialty trust, which I also co-authored. If you'd like to get a class, a book, or have a trust custom built for you, always available at thefearlessfloydshow.com store. And I'll see you in the next show. Thank you for watching and have an awesome day.